They told me right away that they were there because of my trip to Palestine in 2004, where I visited the West Bank and saw the conditions that people in Palestine live under.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on 22 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org, our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. We begin with a trailer from an exciting new film that you might have heard about on Democracy Now! It's called Roadmap to Apartheid. It's narrated by Alice Walker. It features a number of activists, including Ali Abunimah. And it concerns the extraordinary similarities between modern-day Israel and old-time racist South Africa. We concentrate on Palestine in this program. We feature a talk given by a woman who the U.S. government is suspecting of somehow aiding Palestinian terrorists. Her name is Tracy Molm. She's an ASME organizer from Minnesota. She gave a talk at the Connecticut Civil Liberties Conference in December, and after that I interviewed her about her own situation. Then we show some video from Gaza made with a program created by B'Tselem, the Israeli group that documents human rights abuses in the occupied territories. They've given out these cameras to Palestinians. The Palestinians make their own videos and B'Tselem shows them.
This is the beautiful land of Israel and Palestine. The world's three most prominent religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, consider it Holy Land. Each year, millions of people from around the world come here to pray for peace and prosperity. Yet this land is also a major center of conflict in the world today. For Jewish Israelis, the conflict centers on protecting a homeland created for the Jewish people in 1948. For Palestinians, it is about resisting decades of colonialism, expulsion, occupation, and apartheid. Most people identify apartheid with the grotesque system of control that existed in South Africa from 1948 to 1994, in which the white minority ruled over the black majority, stole their land, and deprived them of basic rights. It was a system reviled by the whole world, and it eventually crumbled under the combined pressure of internal resistance and international sanctions. Today, the word is back, and with it too is a growing global movement to end the Israeli form of apartheid.
the Middle East Crisis Committee has a copy of the full film and would like to show it in your city or university. No charge at all. If you're interested, contact info@thestruggle.org. Speaking of films, the Palestinian/Israeli film Five Broken Cameras is up for an Academy Award for Best Documentary. It deserves it. It's an excellent film. Now to the December 2000 talk by Tracy Molm.
I'm going to start with a brief overview, and I really want to get at this question of what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to fight back? On September 24th, 2010, I awoke to a pounding on my door. It was the FBI. It was a warrant to raid my home. There were 5 houses in Minneapolis raided, 2 houses in Chicago, and the Anti-War Committee office. The experience of being raided, people probably have felt this if you've had your house broken into, things stolen off you. The point is to isolate you, to make you feel like you don't have any rights, you don't have anybody there with you. And instead, the way to get at this is the opposite, right? So that was what we did. We immediately started by building a movement, right? Going public. Instead of lawyering up and trying to, control this statement, we got out front. The reality is I stand by everything I did. Look it up, Fight Back. I have a great interview about my trip to Palestine. I'm proud of it. We went out and did this. We built support around the country. We built the Committee to Stop FBI Repression. In the first couple weeks when subpoena dates came up for the 23 of us, we had over 60 cities protesting at their federal buildings to speak out against it. We had solidarity statements from groups, lots of groups here, thank you very much, the Bill of Rights Defense Committee, United Electrical, the National Coalition to Protect Civil Freedoms, the United National Anti-War Coalition, SDS, all of these groups came out and said, we stand by you. We did speaking tours, so people may have seen myself or Meredith Abbey or Jess Sundin or Tom Burke back there. And what that did is that helped make it really easy to refuse. Like, I had no intention of speaking, and I can say that for all 23 of us, but that's a big question. It's hard to say I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to give up all of the work that I've done, and that was really easy when we knew that we had thousands of people around the country, and that was the important part of building this movement. Yeah, right? Feels a lot better when you aren't the only one doing it. 8 months after our raids, we had the raid of Carlos Montes happen. Who's heard of Carlos Montes? Right? He's a national leader. He was a co-founder in the Brown Berets. Right? Really cool guy. And the fact is he still continues to organize and to stand out front of the Chicano movement in LA. He's amazing. And he had basically the FBI agents that raided our house are in a joint terrorism task force meeting. They mention, oh, by the way, there's this guy Carlos Montes who's kind of related to these people. So he gets his own personal raid at 5 a.m. with guns blazing. You know what happens at 5 a.m. when people break into your house? It's really scary. And in that case also, we started right away. We mobilized that giant network that we had created. We sent full-time organizers out to LA. I gave up a month of my life to go there and be active in building this movement. We made posters with Carlos's face on it. We made T-shirts with Carlos's face on it. It was Carlos time, like everywhere, Carlos, Carlos, Carlos. If you went to NATO, you couldn't have ignored the fact that we had a large presence of Carlos, basically of Carlos. It's Carlos's face everywhere. Good face, too. He's a good-looking guy. And it was, and then we did Skype speaking engagements with him and things like that. And, it became real evident pretty quickly that we were being effective. He started with 6 felonies, went down to 4. Right, and the LA County Attorney's Office is still saying, we want 5 years. We want to put this guy in jail for 5 years. Now he's 63, something like that. 5 years is a long time. I mean, it's a long time for anyone, but this man has been fighting for his entire life. 5 years is an injustice. And so we continued to mobilize. We called our entire list of 4,000 people to tell them to call the LA County attorneys and to tell them to drop these charges. We mobilized for court support, so we packed the courtroom every court date that Carlos had. And in the end, Carlos got no jail time, a minor fine, and he pled to 1 felony that can be expunged after 3 years of community service. Now that's a victory. Now you got to think, what would have that been like if we had 40,000 people, right? What we could have gotten in that case. Now, the other thing that we did that's been really important right now is looking at other cases around the country that are similar to ours. And the one that's most notable and one that really touches close to my heart is the case of the Holy Land Foundation. Who's heard of the Holy Land Foundation, or the Holy Land Five? Okay, so 5 gentlemen are running what was the largest Muslim charity group in the United States. They were sending money to Oklahoma City after the bombings. They were sending money around to New Orleans after the Hurricane Katrina. They're also sending money in, not money, more like in the form of charity, medical supplies and school supplies, particularly to Gaza. Now, what happens after 9/11? Bush just goes in and shuts them down unilaterally. Like, there have been, it was no joke, there was an attack on Palestine and Palestine solidarity before that, but that was the kind of that was the line. Right after the 9/11, the Holy Land Foundation was shut down. The 5 men had their houses raided, and so they sat on that for 3 years. In fact, thinking, we'll come back to this 3 years thing. 3 years later, they have indictments. They go through one trial where there's a hung jury, right? There's no evidence that they did anything wrong. There is no crime in sending charity to the people of the world that the U.S. is oppressing, that the U.S. has a part in oppressing. There's no crime in that. But then they come back for a second trial, and this time they introduce secret witnesses, where you don't get to question your charges. They put in secret evidence, secret hearsay evidence. You don't get to see it. The jury does and the judge does, and the prosecutors. Then they also show videos of flag burnings in Palestine, right, to prejudice the jury against these gentlemen. And of course, no surprise, second round they get, some of them get 15, some of them get 65 years. Well, it's a crime. I mean, sending charity is something that we should be uplifting, that we should be proud that we do. And, the lead face behind this is a man by the name of Barry Jonas. He's the lead prosecutor on their case. He moves from D.C. to Texas to go after these guys. He's an ideologue for Israel, right? And he wants to make solidarity with Palestine a crime, which is something that I think puts an impetus on us to fight back more against it. So now we're sitting here over 2 years later, and it's becoming more and more clear that that's also what's happening to us. Barry Jonas has moved from Texas to Chicago, so he's our prosecutor now. Hatem Abadea, who is, his house was one of the ones in Chicago that was raided. He's a major leader in the Arab community in Chicago, and also a really great guy. All of his stuff isn't returned. The rest of us had our stuff returned, making clear that they made copies, but they won't even give him his stuff back. So his family photos, his books, his videos, all of that, they're still holding, saying that they need that because there's impending indictments. They continue to say to all of our lawyers, there are impending indictments. We don't know who, they won't tell us who, they won't tell us when. And the reality is it's all on their side. The law isn't actually what's protecting us. What's protecting us, what I know what's protecting me from being in jail, is you guys, right? Is people standing up. So in a participatory way, I'm going to hand out our pledge to resist. We fully expect, anytime now, remember it was 3 years for the Holy Land Foundation, 3 years from their raids to their indictments. We're in 2 years and 2 months now, so they're still very likely coming. And Hatem is probably a center of that. We have a pledge to resist where we're asking people to sign up to pledge that you will join us in making calls. We will have a call this next year to Attorney General Holder, as long as he stays there, and to President Obama, calling on them to drop this case. We have calls that go out around the Holy Land Foundation when they have upcoming trials. Unfortunately, they're in a case where they really do need this solidarity more than ever. Their only appeal is by standing up for Palestine, by changing the dialogue in the U.S. That's a whole different story. And then the other thing that we have is a piece in our Fight Back newspaper, which I know Tom has been handing out very vividly or very fast to people. It's page 3. We've got basically the brief update, right? So if you want to know a little bit more about where things are at, please take a peek and give it out to your friends. But I really want to kind of just, this is the mantra, the thing that really sticks in my mind is the thing that got us into this trouble is the only thing that's going to get us out, right? Our fight isn't in, isn't in the courtroom. Our fight isn't really in D.C. Our fight is actually in the streets. And that's one of the things that's been most awesome to see. All 23 of us continue to be in the streets, right? So the siege on Gaza, I was out there with SJP at the University of Minnesota, front and center, chanting as loud as possible, free, free Palestine, you know? That's what's going to get us out of this pickle, changing the debate in this country, and by being in the streets, changing that debate. So I just want to encourage everybody to get ready to protest. Monday is Human Rights Day. Hopefully you're at your local protest.
In your talk, you mentioned the knock on the door and that the authorities were interested in your Palestine activities. When was the knock on the door?
7 a.m., September 24th, 2010. They told me right away that they were there because of my trip to Palestine in 2004, where I visited the West Bank and saw the conditions that people in Palestine live under.
And they're complaining about this how many years later?
6. 6 years later, yeah, no, that was my exact response. You're a little late. You guys missed the boat or something.
So where did you go in Palestine?
I went to, started in Haifa to see the conditions of Palestinians living under the Israeli government with second-class citizenship. And then we went into Ramallah and went down to Hebron and up to Bet Zahor, Bethlehem, and Jenin, and a couple other places, Kakilia, and Jerusalem also. But there are a couple other ones I know I'm missing. It's been quite a while now.
It's pretty intense in 2004.
Yeah, we were at a very rigorous schedule to be able to witness fully what was happening. At the time, there was a prisoner strike. So the prisoners across, all of the prisoners in Israel, Palestinian prisoners are primarily in Israel in the time, they had somehow been able to organize a hunger strike and had hunger strike solidarity tents in all of the cities that we visited, and so we were able to see the different communities and people coming together to talk about this collective problem of Palestinian prisoners.
Let's jump ahead. I'm sorry, but jump ahead this year. We have another Gaza bloodbath. What did you do when you heard about that?
Immediately, I joined with my sisters and brothers in Students for Justice in Palestine, and the Palestinian community, American Muslims for Palestine, are very powerful in the Twin Cities, and we organize protests every day for basically starting on that Wednesday, going through skipping Thanksgiving and then going through the next week. We had an event every day, visible events to get the word out and to protest our outrage.
Last question, you still feel you're going to be indicted?
I think it's a very likely possibility that myself or others and the 23 activists will be indicted.
What can people do to help?
We are asking people to go to our website, to stopfbi.net, and to sign our pledge. It's a way to get the word out when they do come down with indictments or other events happen, so that we can let people know to stand up. We do regular phone-ins to Barry Jonas, the prosecutor in our case, and to Obama, to call on them to end the prosecution of myself and the other activists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaking of indefinite detention, this year Congress passed the NDAA, which again has provisions for indefinite detention. The U.S. military can grab any person in the world and put them in jail indefinitely if it suspects them of terrorism. The NDAA also has provisions to make it virtually impossible for the president to close the notorious Guantanamo prison. Despite these obvious assaults on our Constitution, the president signed the law. Now to Gaza. You will see no horrors here, but consider what the filmmaker shows us about the lack of electricity.
مرحبا أنا خالد، انولدت وكبرت في غزة وكل حياتي قضيتها فيها. عمري 44 عام، متزوج وعندي ولدين وبنتين. أنا بدأت العمل في منظمة بيت سالم لحقوق الإنسان منذ عام 2007 وحتى الآن. أنا بعرف إنه أنتم سمعتوا كتير قصص عن غزة، والبعض من هذه القصص صحيح. في هذا الفيديو راح أفرجيكم على غزة اللي أنا بشوفها، وراح أبدأ من الإشي الأقرب إلي اللي هو عيلتي. زوجتي ليندا، عدي، رشا، محمد، سما، وأمي. ابني محمد مش مرتاح كتير مع الكاميرا، ودايما أنا مع الكاميرا عشان هيك هو راح يتعود عليها. طيب إيش طموحاتك أنت؟
لسه ما قررتش يعني ايش اصير.
طب ولا مرة هيك فكرت بينك وبين نفسك إنه أنت؟
فكرت كنت اصير لاعب كورة، فكرت اطلع مهندس زي هيك.
طب لو قررت إنه حابب تصير لاعب كورة، وين حابب في أي نادي تلعب؟
طبعا هطلع يعني من نادي عربية اتدرب فيها والعب، ممكن يعني اطلع نادي اجنبية بعدين.
وشو النادي الأجنبي اللي أنت نفسك تلعب فيه؟
برشلونة.
ليش؟
خلاص عشان في لعيبة كتير كويس.
جربوا للحظة تتخيلوا كيف حياتكم بدون كهرباء. صحيح انه قبل 100 سنة الناس ما كانت تحلم بهيك اشي، لكن اليوم كلنا محتاجين الكهرباء. حتى لو انه هالاشي مجرد انك تتفرج على شوية مقاطع على اليوتيوب او تشوف ضحكة بنتك، فما بالك اذا بدك تشتغل او عدي بده يكتب الواجب اللي عليه، وكمان رشا نفس الاشي. معظم الوقت ما بيكون عندنا كهرباء، واذا كانت جاية بتكون بتيجي وبتروح بصورة متقطعة. اشتريت مولدات كهرباء 2، ولكن مع مشكلة البنزين في غزة أنا مضطر إني أشغل المولد الصغير اللي ما بكفي حاجتي من الكهرباء، وإذا تعطل هذا المولد ما في خيار تاني إلا إنه نقعد في العتمة، وهذا الإشي اللي بصير بالأغلب. مشكلة الكهرباء، مشكلة المي، هذه مشاكل ممكن انه عدسات الكاميرات تنقلها للعالم، لكن في هناك مشاكل صعب انه تنتقل ويشوفها العالم بواسطة كاميرات التلفزيون. عدم الشعور بالامان، انه انت عايش بمكان معرض في كل لحظة انه يتحول لما لساحة حرب او لمنطقة ساخنة، فبالتالي الحياة هناك صعبة جدا. انت بتكون ماشي بالشارع او طالع عند اسرتك وزوجتك واولادك وما بتعرف ايش ممكن يصير في اي لحظة، رغم كل المخاطر وكل الصعوبات انه نحن نعيش حياتنا.
كانت في لعبة للكلاسيكو، احنا خلصت على الساعة 12 في الليل، طلعنا برا، الله في جيب جيش تبع المخابرات واقف على الشارع. احنا ابويا قال يمكن بدهم ياخذوا حدا الليلة، وعاود راح الجيب. لما ابوي طلع على الشغل على الساعة 12 ونص في الليل، انا خشيت نمت على الوحدة، اجوا طقوا الباب، صاروا يقولوا بدنا شوكر. بعدها بشوية دخلوا اهلي، وانا يعني اخذوني على الشارع، كلبشوني وغموا عيني، رتبوني في الجيب، في كرسيين في الجيب، قعدوني بينهم وجنود نصحية يعني، وكل ما يميلوا على الكوربة يفغصون فغص الجنديين. الحين لما شغل الناقلة، في صار جندي يرفع على رجلي وضربني، هي شفرة
حديدة بعرف شو المهم بأداة حادة.
في الجيب رشبوني وأخذوني على عصيون. عودنا رحنا على التحقيق، صار كل تعترف ولا نضرب. قلت له بعرف شي وبلش فيها ضرب. خذني على واحد كبير قال لي بدك تعترف بلاش أجيب أهلك تشلم هون وإذا وديت. قلت له ضربت حجار.
مسكت ايدي وبلش يوقع فيه على الورق يعني غصب عني.
كل ما نيجي نغفى يعني ننام بيجي جندي بصحينا بضربنا شلنيط هيك على رجلينا بصحينا ما يخليناش نعرف ننام.
وبعدين اخذوا الجنود ورحت على عوفر.
قعدت 28 يوم. بعدها أخذوني على رومانيا. من رومانيا قضيت الحبسة غدا وروحت.
اشتقت اصحابي يعني في السجن وفكر فيهم يعني الواحد احنا ساعات صغار ما بنقدرش نسجن. كبير بتحبه بس احنا ساعات صغار ما بنقدرش نسجن. انا في البيت بحبش اقعد في البيت. كيف السجن يعني غرفة واحدة بتطلع شوية بتروح بتشوف الشمس.
That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.
When the world has gone crazy and it's all becoming clear, when they're gunning down our comrades and it seems the end is near, as they're loading up the launchers for the tear gas grenades, we can take off our bandanas and kiss behind the barricades. When it's madness all around and you can see this at a glance, we will sing and we will cry, we will laugh and we will dance as they shout their marching orders beneath the helicopter blades. We shall seize the moment for a kiss behind the barricades. They will try to break our spirit, and at times they may succeed, but our love for the world is stronger than their greed. When the building is surrounded and hope begins to fade, in my final hour, a kiss behind the barricades. As the movement grows, there will be hills and bends, but at the center of the struggle are your lovers and your friends. And the more we hold each other up, the less we can be swayed. Here's to love and solidarity, and a kiss behind the barricades.